first glance, Juan Carlos Aguilar was a man to be admired, a kung fu master with an aura of discipline and wisdom. He claimed to have been trained under authentic Shaolin monks in China, even boasting that he was the first Westerner to be accepted among the Shaolin monks. His warrior-like demeanor and charisma led him to appear in different shows and television, own a successful gym, and also be idolized by a lot of people, mostly his students. But behind this careful image of enlightenment and strength, a predator lurked in the shadows. The horrifying truth revealed in 2013 when the police raided his gym. What they found inside was the stuff of nightmares. A young woman, tied, bound, and showing signs of brutal torture, was on the brink of death. And yet, that was only the beginning. As investigators went through the gym, they discovered different parts of remains of body parts hidden in different parts of the gym, dismembered body parts. Chilling evidence of also something far more sinister turned the so-called sanctuary of discipline into a house of horrors. So welcome back to another Beauty and Crime Sunday with me, in which I do my skincare while we talk about chilling cases that I found. So in today's video, we are diving deep into the disturbing case of Juan Carlos Aguilar, better known as the fake Shaolin monk, a man who built an empire of lies, using the mystique of martial arts to mask the darkness within. Juan Carlos Aguilar was born in 1965 in Baracaldo, the northern of Spain. Little is known about his childhood. We only know that he grew in a family of shepherds alongside 4 different siblings. From a very young age, he was drawn into martial arts. This was also largely influenced because of his older brother, José Luis. For them, martial arts, it wasn't really about fighting. It was a way to control the storm room inside their mind. So by 1980, martial arts were exploding around all Spain. It was so popular that Spain started having a lot of demand for that type of training centers. So obviously, seizing the opportunity, the Aguilar brothers transformed their passion into a business, taking over a gym in Bilbao, what would become later San4. So Juan Carlos would actually run the facility, teaching different classes like Tai Chi, meditation, and basically cultivating a cult-like following. What no one knew then was that San4 was actually going to become the gym of horrors later. To understand the twisted mind of Juan Carlos Aguilar, we really need to go back to 1992, a year that changed everything for him. His older brother, José Luis, was tragically killed when a freight elevator crushed him to death. The typical elevators in which you put like materials to move along, he was crushed by one of those. So the loss of his brother, his mentor, shattered Juan Carlos, obviously. Consumed by dark thoughts, the grief of losing his brother, he decided to go on a trip to China, seeking the roots of martial arts in the legendary Shaolin monastery. The Shaolin monastery, located in the Henan province, is the birthplace of a centuries-old tradition that intertwines Buddhism with martial arts. The monks that reside there are known for their very extreme discipline, dedicating their lives to physical and spiritual mastery. The story dates back to the 5th century, when Bodhidharma, an Indian monk, introduced physical exercise to strengthen both body and soul, leading to the Shaolin Kung Fu. So for centuries, Shaolin monks were revered for their wisdom and combat skills, However, in modern times, their monastery has been kinda transformed into a tourist attraction by the Chinese government. Many argue that what was once a sacred place of learning has diluted into a commercial spectacle. So Juan Carlos spent 3 years in China from 1992 to 1995. When he returned to Spain, he was a changed man. He opened another gym infused with mysticism, dramatically naming him the Monastery of the Ocean Tranquility. This wasn't just a training center for him. It was a stage to perform his greatest act. Cloaked in the prestige of his supposed Shaolin training, he claimed to be a three-time Kung Fu worldwide champion, which solidified his reputation later on. The media quickly took notice of this mysterious master. He appeared on television, drawing people in with his philosophy and martial arts skill. To his students, he was just way more than just a teacher. He was a guide, a spiritual leader. So yeah, it kinda does sound like a cult. He even referred himself as a representative of Buddha on earth. Unlike the Chinese government, Juan Carlos very fast realized that perception was way more important than reality. He meticulously transformed the gym, the atmosphere to match his narrative. Among the most striking features inside the gym was a massive Buddha in the middle of the tatami where he would actually hold the classes. And I don't know where he got that massive Buddha from because it was very big in those pictures, so no idea how he got it. How he required such an enormous relic is still a mystery. After returning from China, Juan Carlos actually changed his name to Juan Aguilar, which, if I'm not mistaken, tell me if I am, means death. So, I'm not very sure why he changed his name to Juan Death. Maybe I'm mistaken, but that's the first thing I thought when I read it. I was like, what? Also, in his teachings, he would tell weird stuff to their students like, a person at their limit reveals their true nature. We are animals bound with restraints, and martial arts help us unleash them. One former student that actually trained with him for 4 years recalled his very piercing gaze and very intimidating presence. She and her fellow students were mesmerized by his teachings, his aura, and his spirituality. But after the truth came out, she admitted he was totally insane. But I never thought he would be able to do something like this. I feel like that's what everyone says. Especially being such a spiritual person. I'm in shock. Sem4 and the so-called the Ocean Tranquility Monastery became more than just training centers. They became places of devotion. Students really believed that they were training from a real Shaolin master. A man who had trained in very ancient temples and unlocked spiritual enlightenment. But behind closed doors, Juan Carlos was nothing like the disciplined monk that he was saying he was. His personal life was just as turbulent. In 2004, he divorced his wife, with whom he had 2 children. She described him as a difficult man, driven by an obsessive spiritualism. On social media, Juan Carlos also curated his social media image, sharing tales of his travels, not only in China, also to other places that he went to, his training, and his supposed academic achievements. His Facebook page, which is still live if you actually want to go check it out, lists degrees in humanity, anthropology, and law from very prestigious universities in Spain. He portrayed himself as a seeker of truth, a man in pursuit of enlightenment. He didn't just build a persona, he built a legend. He claimed to be an 8-time national kung fu champion and a 3-time worldwide champion. And the one that is the most notably, the first Westerner officially recognized as the Shaolin master. His gym in the heart of Bilbao became a magnet of discipline, drawing students all across from Spain and even abroad. He taught Kung Fu, Tai Chi, yoga, and meditation. Even members of police force sought his instructions in self-defense. Some locals recall seeing officers from Ertzaintza, which is the police in the north of Spain, attending his classes. So his growing reputation led to numerous television appearances where he dazzled audiences with his martial arts prowess and philosophy. He looked like he embodied discipline, wisdom, and power, but in reality, he was just a master of deception. Juan Carlos had an undeniable gift. He could captivate people. His speeches about spirituality and harmony with nature attracted those searching for meaning in their life. He spread his teachings not only through television, but also through YouTube channel, where many of his videos remained online still. His performances of breaking bricks with his bare hands, walking on burning embers, convinced many that he was the real deal. I don't know, I'm not very into Tai Chi, Zen meditation and stuff, but tell me if I'm wrong. Why would doing crazy tricks have to do anything with harmony and inside power? I understand that you are holding the power inside you because it hurts, but still don't understand why you have to do that. But well, no matter how convincing his act was, the truth was about to be revealed. And when it did, the world really saw Juan Carlos for what he really was. Not a monk, not a master, but a monster. Juan Carlos Aguilar's rising fame, combined with his dominating personality, made him a controversial figure from the very beginning in the world of martial arts. It seems as he actually wanted to monopolize Kung Fu in Spain, positioning himself as the ultimate master. For 7 years, he organized different trips to China, marketing them as transformative experiences at the Shaolin monastery. The cost? A staggering 3,000 euros. Oh, but not the whole thing. Per week. 3,000 euros per week. Those who actually returned from that trip were intoxicated by the belief that they had undergone a profound spiritual awakening. But the problem was that in China, self-proclaimed spiritual leaders were everywhere. And many of them were just nothing more than skilled illusionists. As time went on, his behavior actually became more erratic. He urged his students to take a vow of poverty, which in reality was nothing more than a scheme to funnel their money into his own pockets. Furthermore, online forums were flooded with reports of his brutal treatments toward his disciples. Through his career, there was 2 times he almost got exposed. 2 times that he could have been unmasked. The first encounter was in 1997 in Marbella, where a martial exhibition was going on. His performance caused a major scandal. His extreme and reckless display of violence shocked the audience, especially the celebrities in attendance. The second incident, however, happened in 2000 in Espinosa de los Monteros, the small village where his parents were actually from. He had promised an incredible stunt, pushing a car, having a spirit pushing against his throat. The event was obviously very heavily advertised, and the local government actually gave him 1,200 euros for the actual show. However, when the time came, Juan Carlos only performed a few acrobatics and broke some bricks. The grand stunt that he was talking about never happened. The townspeople and the local police felt very deceived. They had paid for a show that actually never materialized. So this was actually Juan Carlos' past. You could kind of see the red flags, but it wasn't deceived until the two very first victims came out. So now let's actually start talking about the actual victims. First of all, we have Jenny Sofia Rebollo, that it's the first known victim of the fake Shaolin monk. She had arrived in Spain 14 years earlier, leaving her home country in Colombia in a search for a better future. But life had dealt her devastating blows. The worst of them came when her 4-year-old child died because a car ran him over. This heartbreak changed Jenny completely, and she decided to leave Colombia, hoping to start a new life in Spain. Those who actually knew Jenny described her as a very hardworking, affectionate, and very detail-oriented. Her friends in Spain, they didn't really know that she was involved in prostitution. They only knew her as a very dedicated hairstylist, always smiling and very kind to everyone. Back in Colombia, she actually lived in Chambe, in one of the largest houses in that area. So during the day, she would actually go study in the University of Sinu in Colombia, and she would actually study medicine. And in the afternoons, she would actually go to a hair salon and work as a hairstylist. But the loss of her child shattered her world, obviously. She separated from her husband, distanced herself from her loved ones, and she embarked on a journey to go to Spain. Once in Bilbao, she actually found a new partner, and together they had a 3-year-old son. Meanwhile, her other child, an 8-year-old boy that was left in Colombia, remained there under the care of her mother. But in recent years before the actual crime happened, Jenny's life became a little more complicated. She never really spoke about work with her family members, but she never failed to call her family. Then came the night of May 25, 2013, at 3:20 a.m. Juan Carlos summoned Jenny to go to the gym, a place that was supposed to symbolize discipline and tranquility, was about to turn into a house of horrors. Once inside the so-called monastery, the fake Shaolin monk revealed his true nature. He tied Jenny up, took photographs of her, then mutilated her body, hiding her remains in different corners of the gym. He even took some body parts of her into his own house. The days following this gruesome crime were nothing short of chilling. While Jenny's dismembered body was all around the gym, Juan Carlos decided it was a great idea to still have classes as normal, and people were having classes in that tatami that we just talked about, and her body parts were under. They were completely unaware that human remains were underneath them. During the trial, a woman named Eva, one of Juan Carlos' students and actually his romantic partner at that time, revealed a disturbing encounter she had with him the day after Jenny's murder. Juan Carlos had asked her to go inside the gym. for a very unusual request. He wanted her to sit silently in the dark room adjacent to the main training area. For 2 hours, Eva sat in that room, listening to very eerie sounds of metallic clanking, power tools, and the buzzing of a chainsaw. She had obviously no idea what was happening. But then Juan Carlos returned, and then he decided to, without explanation, he blindfolded her and guided her into another room. He told her to lie in the bed, and then he instructed her to touch a specific section in the bed. She obeyed, and her hands met something very cold and very hard. At that time, she didn't really think much of it, but what she had touched was Jenny's body. Eva left that gym, still unaware of the horrors that she had been close to. Meanwhile, Juan Carlos took several plastic bags, got into his car, and drove off. Surveillance cameras actually captured his entire route as he made through the city. Under the cover of night, he discarded his darkest secret, Jenny's remains, into the Bilbao's river. Later, it was found that there was actually photographic evidence of what Eva said, supporting Eva's testimony. The images depicted violent acts that Juan Carlos had expressed himself as expelling the evil within him. Some of the women appeared unconscious or under the influence of something in those type of pictures. Investigators initially believed that probably Jenny was not the first victim because there was so many photographic evidence of different girls. But after an exhaustive investigation, authorities tracked every single girl in those pictures, and they realized that they were all alive, so they took Jenny as the first victim. For years, Juan Carlos had hidden behind a mask of discipline and spirituality. He had convinced the world that he was a very wise master, a Shaolin monk, a martial arts guru, but in reality he was nothing more than just a monster, lurking in the shadows, waiting for his next victim. As you may have seen from the title of this video, there is 2 victims in the story, not 1. So who is the other victim? Her name was Maureen Ada Ortulla, a warm, vibrant woman known for her infectious personality. Many of her friends describe her as a very popular girl, the kind of person that will light up the room when she enters. Maureen had arrived to Bilbao only 1 year before crossing paths with Juan Carlos. She worked on Las Cortes, one of the city's most impoverished streets. Every evening around 7 or 8 p.m., she would gather with other girls in front of building number 1, her usual spot. She only worked at night, and on tougher days, her shift could last until sunrise. During this time, she lived in Iturrizar Street, just 300 meters from Juan Carlos' home. Despite the joy she brought to people around her, she carried a very deep nostalgia. Everything she earned in those cold streets, she would send to her family. Because the bad thing about this case is that both of the victims were immigrants in Spain. And I think that's why Juan Carlos probably chose these 2 girls, apart from working as sex workers. So once again, Juan Carlos hired another sex worker, and once again he actually tried to recreate the same crime that he did with Jenny. But this time things did not go as planned. Maureen fought back, and very hardly. In desperate attempts of surviving, she broke free from the grasp of Juan and ran towards the door. But when she reached it, she was met with iron bars blocking the door, trapped. Her screams for help echoed through the whole street, and one person actually heard them. A woman named Veronica that was just walking her dog when she saw something that she would haunt her forever. I saw someone screaming for help. And then I saw another person grab her by her hair and drag her back inside. Veronica didn't hesitate. She immediately called the police. By the time the officers actually went inside the gym, the scene they found was horrific. Maureen was unconscious, in a coma, barely clinging to life. Inside the gym, they found different weapons, saws, axes, and katanas. A brutal arsenal which Juan had displayed on the wall as part of his martial arts exhibitions. But now, they served a far more sinister purpose. Maureen was rushed to the hospital, but sadly, 2 days later, she actually died, becoming the final victim of the fake Shaolin monk. But the horror did not end there, because at this point, they knew, okay, Maureen is dead. They only thought that maybe he had one victim. They didn't know about Jenny. While searching the gym, the police officers found another gruesome discovery. Inside a plastic bag, they found the remains of Jenny Sofia Rebollo. The victim, Juan Carlos, thought that he successfully got rid of the remains. I don't know if he believed that they weren't gonna check under the tatami and everything. That smells horribly, so I don't know what he thought. So the forensic examination revealed horrific details. Juan Carlos had inflicted brutal, forceful blows on both of his victims. Maureen had suffered a very severe liver contusion, likely from Juan Carlos' bare knuckle punches. Investigators formed a very chilling theory. Juan Carlos found pleasure, probably. This is what they believed. Juan Carlos found pleasure in seeing their bodies naked and motionless. That twisted satisfaction was what had driven him to kill. So once arrested, tried to explain his actions. He claimed it was a result of a mental breakdown, and he told the police it was an uncontrollable fit of rage. When I realized Jenny died, I tried to get rid of her, but I failed. His story did not end up there, no. He claimed to have a brain tumor, which he insisted he made him lose control. He spoke of experimenting very bizarre mental episodes, saying, I have these moments where my brain just shuts down. I lose connection with reality. Are you saying that everyone that has brain tumors can do these things? Nope. I obviously don't believe anything he's saying. And people were actually very smart, and they also saw the bullshit that he was saying. He even tried to convince the court. Yes, the court. He had a near-death experience years before while climbing a mountain that was like 1,500 meters high, claiming that ever since then, his thoughts had slowed down and he had been mentally disconnected from reality. It was all a part of his desperate attempt to avoid responsibility. But the medical reports told a very different story. Juan Carlos did have a condition actually, an arachnoid cyst on the left temporal lobe of his brain. However, doctors confirmed that this had no connection to violent behavior. The only treatment needed for this was simple medication for memory enhancement. Nothing that could have justified what he actually had done. And if that wasn't enough for him, his entire public image came crashing down. For years, as I said before, Juan Carlos boasted that he was a three-time world champion with 8 national titles in Spain. All lies. After his arrest, the only officially recognized Shaolin center in Spain issued a public statement saying Juan Carlos Aguilar was never a Shaolin master. He was never a monk. He does not meet any of the qualifications required to hold that title. So everything that he built, his reputation, his martial arts empire, was a complete fraud. On April 15, 2015, the trial actually began. The case attracted massive media attention. Over 100 accredited journalists were in attendance. The courtroom was filled with cameras. The public wanted to see the fall of the so-called Shaolin master. And then the first voice echoed through the silent courtroom. It was Juan Carlos' confession. But before he actually spoke, the judicial secretary read out a written statement, a statement that Juan Carlos had prepared himself, in which he fully admitted to his crimes. He said, "I acted suddenly, unpredictably, and impulsively." At the beginning of the investigation, Juan obviously did not want to cooperate with the police. But as the trial date actually came, he started talking. Many believe that this was a calculated strategy, a last-ditch effort to reduce his sentence. But what stood the most in that courtroom? He never showed not an inch of remorse. When he stood before the court, he looked as cold and emotionless as the days before. He calmly admitted to everything. No fear, no regrets, no shame. With all that evidence laid bare in the courtroom, one horrifying fact became undeniable. Juan Carlos Aguilar didn't just kill, he enjoyed it. The brutal attacks, the defenseless victims, the unconscious bodies. This was his pleasure. It was all proven beyond doubt by the disturbing photos and videos found in his gym. He filmed his crimes. He watched them again and again. He had beaten his victims until they took their last breath. And then he recorded it so he could enjoy it later. But the most chilling part, investigators believe that Juan Carlos planned every single step. He had fantasized about it. He had craved it. When he obviously murdered Maureen, it wasn't a moment of madness. It was premeditated. Juan got into his car and went hunting. He was out that night to look for his next victim. And when the police arrived to the crime scene, what they found was sickening. Maureen's body lay hidden in the corner, dumped on an old mattress. A dirty sheet covered her lifeless form. Her clothes were ripped apart, all blood on her. She was unconscious, bound at the hands and feet with plastic ties. The same method that he had used with Jenny before, but this time he actually got caught. So the trial lasted 7 days, and in the end the jury delivered their unanimous verdict. Guilty. Guilty of 2 brutal murders. Guilty of unspeakable cruelty. Guilty of being a monster hiding behind a mask of wisdom. Juan Carlos Aguilar was sentenced to 38 years, which for me it's too low. But one thing stood out throughout the trial. Not once, not even for a second, did Juan show remorse. He sat in the court emotionless, eyes closed, leaning back in the chair with his hands clasped together. His expression cold, defiant, empty. It was as he didn't really care, as if none of it mattered. But what happened next? He would soon learn what it truly meant to be powerless. Juan Carlos had barely spent a couple weeks inside the prison, but in July 28, 2015, another inmate decided to deliver his own form of justice with a sharpened prison brush, a toothbrush. The inmate attacked him without warning. In a frenzy of rage, he stabbed Juan Carlos multiple times in the head and in the neck, over and over again. It should have been the end for him, no? But miraculously, he survived. After recovering in the hospital, he actually was moved to another prison, where he remains to this date. His release date, 2038. But just when it seemed that the case was closed, yeah, there is more. investigators turned their attention to a mysterious death that happened a while ago. In 1997, his older brother died in a freak accident involving a cargo lift. And where did it happen? Oh, in the same gym that all those crimes happened? Suspicious. Given his history of violence, police launched a new investigation, just in case. Was it really an accident? Or had Juan gotten away with his first murder nearly 2 decades ago? Despite extensive efforts, police couldn't find enough evidence that actually that happened. But the suspicion has never faded. So you tell me, what do you think? Do you think he did it or not? There is not enough evidence, so I don't think he did. So the case of Juan Carlos Aguilar, the fake Shaolin monk, is proof that appearances can be deceiving. He sold himself as a very wise martial arts master, a man of a spiritual enlightenment, a teacher who inspired loyal followers. But beneath the disciplined exterior, there was a monster inside, a wolf in sheep's clothing. His carefully crafted public image earned him the trust of journalists, students, and followers. None of them ever suspected the evil lurking behind those walls. And that leaves us with one final disturbing lesson. Anyone, no matter how disciplined or how respected, can be hiding a monstrous truth. But at the end, the truth always finds its way out. And that, my friends, is the horrifying case of the fake Shaolin monk. A man who hid himself behind the mask of discipline and respect. But beneath, it was nothing more than just darkness. Stories like this reminds us of something very unsettling. Evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a teacher, a mentor, even a so-called master. If you found this case as disturbing as I did, let me know your thoughts in the comments. This case is very known in Spain, but I don't think it's very known globally, so I do think this case is very interesting because it's not really talked about enough. Do you think there could have been more victims in this case that we just don't know about? Like, for example, the brother. Do you think maybe he did it? Do you really believe Juan Carlos' brother's death was just an accident or just his first kill? I would love to hear your theories. Thank you for watching, and remember, do your skincare. And if you don't end up like a glazed donut at the end of it, you're not doing it right. Bye-bye!